told through the stories of today's leaders in finance, tech, real estate, culture, and sustainability. This is Planet Gold, with your host, Enzo Di Taranto.
Welcome to this new edition of Planet Gold, my eco podcast to re-engineer the global climate agenda at the horizon 2030. Today, I'm with another special guest, Lucian Tarnowski, who is a creative film director. I met Lucian in Paris in the fantastic venue of the CC Forum. I think the most glamorous conference room on the planet. And if anybody disagrees with that, I would like to know, because it's really something special. That room had a very, very unique energy. So I met Lucian there, and then we met again in Davos in January this year. And you always see Lucian filming with his creative mind, doing fantastic things. And actually, we thought that this conversation of today that explores the potential still untapped of the media to divulgate a positive narrative regarding the planet and the global climate agenda. And I think that Lucian is can find in my mind and in my network somebody more skilled and more inspired than him. I had also the pleasure to be part of a mastermind produced by the Ubuntu tribe and Africa Top 2.0 that Lucian also moderated, where we spoke about the way the planet communicates with humans. And Lucian has some very weird and disruptive ideas about that, and I would like to explore with the Planet Gold audience today as well. But this is your space, Lucian. I understand you are in Ibiza, just came back from India, right?
I was in India, but just came back more recently from Paris and Dominican Republic.
Yes, absolutely. We spoke about my cherished Dominican Republic as well. You can tell us a little bit more about your recent travels, but most importantly about your life story and your passion for the planet, how that's triggered inside your soul.
Well, so I mean, starting my recent travels, really for the last 4 years, I've been, if you like, playing with time travel. In the whole thesis, the start from in my theory of change with United Planet is, rather than let's start from 2025, where we're in a world of chaos and crisis and separation and othering and all of the big challenges that we have in our world presently, what we do is we start from the future we want to see. So we start from the future where we've achieved a planetary thriving, where we've achieved the greatest future vision we can imagine. And we reverse engineer from there. And so I've been very lucky just from my travels to over the last 4 years, we've done now 28 up games, the United Planet Games, which I'm going to go into in a moment. Across now, I think over 20 countries, across 6 continents, featuring more than now 1,000 change makers, what we call Gaians, citizens of Gaia. To step outside of time and to story the more beautiful future our hearts knows possible. So that future where we've actually become in right relationship with the natural world around us, where we've unleashed our fullest potential, where we've risen to the challenge, if you like, the opportunity of this golden age, this unique moment in history. And so my travels go really very far and wide around the world, but they also go into, if you like, other dimensions, like beyond time and into the realm of our collective imagination of what's possible. So, I feel incredibly lucky that I get to spend so much of my time surrounded by some of the brightest, most committed, most audacious change makers on our planet, learning from them what does the world look like once their mission has been achieved. And that has been such a position of privilege, and I think that's probably the best way of starting with. You asked about my life story, and I was undoubtedly born into privilege. I was born to really incredible parents, both formidable change makers in their own right. My mum was born into a lot of privilege. She was born into the Astor family, a very old and a powerful family. My grandfather owned the Times newspaper in the UK, and my mum was born into a whole world of privilege and influence. And she took that privilege and she applied it for what she saw as positive change, and she really lived a life of great impact. But she died too young, at 68 from cancer. And that kind of shaped my journey when I experienced my mother's death in 2017. But then my father, Arthur Tarnowski, he was a truly amazing man. He was born in 1929, the son of very wealthy and influential parents in Poland, but lost absolutely everything in the war. He was a prisoner of war. When he was not much more than 11 years old, he was hiding the Jews from the estate and from the family land, in the ceiling above where SS officers were occupying our family home, to basically manage the invasion of Poland. And so Dad was going from having dinner with SS officers to taking the remains of their food and hiding it and knocking on the ceiling where he was hiding the Jews to feed them the leftovers of the food from the SS officers, and then sneaking out at night and passing any intelligence that he heard to the Polish resistance. So, he had a pretty crazy childhood. He got caught with my grandmother, put in prison there, and had a brutal Second World War. He was starved. He was meant to be sent to Siberia. He managed to escape prison before he was ultimately sent to Siberia. And he 2 years on the run, and managed to finally escape Poland and arrived in the UK as a refugee, having lost everything, and so kind of restarted life. And to cut a long story short, he was creating to prevent future wars. He was writing the first guidebooks for how to travel overland in the 50s, and he contracted polio writing the first guidebook in Bali. And he ended up spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And so in the 60s, he did the world's largest study ever done of disability, where he went around the world 100,000 kilometers in his wheelchair, looking at how to rehabilitate disabled people. So he met there this amazing man called Baba Amte, who was the protege of Gandhi and became, his co-creator, co-visioner of how to provide dignity to those with disability. And so fast forward, I come along in 1984, and by that point, Anand Van had impacted almost over 2 million people's lives as a family foundation. My father had been working there. Ultimately, he worked together with Baba for 50 years, and is buried there in India. He died in 2012. So I was raised with great figures as guides and mentors. One of my adopted grandfather's best friends was the Dalai Lama. I kind of was surrounded by people that inspired me to not accept reality as it is, but recognize that everything around us has been created by others, and it's not necessarily what it needs to look like in the future. And so that began with my passion for education, where I started a company. I initially took over my father's foundation when I was 18, and I started an IT and English language school training blind girls vocational employment skills, and that led me to start a company that was a very early platform creating knowledge sharing communities online. So virtual communities that help different communities collaborate. And I did that for 10 years, and we were very successful in what we did. We were, had major clients like GE and Institute for Healthcare Improvement and Accenture and networks like 100 Million Healthier Lives. We powered the world's largest community for military veterans, helping vets transition from the military to civilian jobs. Um, and really got very involved in designing frontline communities of transformation around how they can collaborate and share knowledge. And that made me absolutely fascinated with systems change. I was very privileged. I was one of the youngest young global leaders with the World Economic Forum, and I began speaking all over the world. I somehow got invited to be a keynote speaker in many countries around the world for many organizations and thousands of people. And so I got to learn a lot about the future of talent, the future of education, the future of collaboration, the future of systems change. My exposure to the World Economic Forum, probably now like 100 World Economic Forum events over the years as a young global leader, exposed me a lot to the current thinking of how do we tackle our world's challenges. And with all of that said, I was itching to really recognize this unique moment in time that we're at a kind of civilization fork in the road. We're on one side a golden age and on the other side a dystopic future. And I really saw that, and I saw that a lot of what was happening in the world was taking us down the dystopic route. It was kind of like moving chairs on the Titanic, if you like.
Yes.
You know exactly what I mean by this. If you go to a lot of the kind of world gatherings, whether it be COP, etc., a lot of what's being discussed, it's what I call tweaking. It's tweaking the current system. If we know we need to go north and we're going south, what's happening there is discussing how we get to south southwest. It's just
Yeah.
not. and and so when I became a father in 2017 and lost my mom and my stepmother the same year, I got to a point where it became almost too painful for me to feel like I was sort of towing the line of the existing extractive system. And at that point, I really kind of made an oath with myself, and if you like, with the world at large, with whatever you might want to call God's spirit, the universal consciousness. I
Yeah.
made a pact that I was going to dedicate my life to creating a thriving future for all life, and that I wasn't going to work for money anymore. I was never going to be for sale.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would dedicate to this unique moment in history.
Yeah. Lucian, sorry to step
Yeah,
on
no, please.
this. Yeah, because you mentioned a very interesting concept that's dear to me, which is reverse engineering. And I have, studied this concept both in business and in the longevity space, because two scientists, I should say, that I admire very much. One is Stephen Covey. I don't know if you are very young, maybe you don't remember him, but he created this concept of the 7 habits
Of
of
highly
highly
effective people.
effectively people.
Yeah, I've
Um,
read it.
Yeah, and one of the concept was begin with the end in mind.
Exactly.
And I always apply that concept. It's very interesting. Most recently, because the intersection between sustainability and longevity is what fascinates me. Because actually, my next book is called Planet Gold: The Planet Through the Body, and I explain how we are the planet. Actually, the planet is not an external entity. And so we have in our own cells, the same cells, the same planetary consciousness, as you say. And so there is a scientist, a medical scientist, his name is Dr. Peter Attia. He's very, very popular as well. And he has created this concept of re-engineering the Olympic I think that he uses the word centurion. So it's like, if you would like to be healthy at 100 years old, what you have to do today to reverse engineering that process. So that's interesting. Now, coming back to the topic of our Planet Gold podcast, which is the planet. So, and since I think that you have one of your main strengths, among others, is the creative use of media. So my question is, imagining this ideal future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, we should live with the memory of the future, not thinking as us and as the world today, but how we can imagine the best possible we can imagine in, let's say, 10 years. I wouldn't go too far than that. Let's say 2030.
Absolutely.
So my question for you is how we can use the media in all, its expressions, digital, printed, these international conferences, the knowledge platforms, every expression, every angles of the media, how we can use that more strategically to accelerate the realization of this ideal future.
Well, the great question, Enzo. Thank you. The first thing I'd say is the narrative is the front line. The stories we tell is the front line of transformation. And so when you look at the landscape of narratives, it's clear that we are, if you like, being conquered by dystopia.
Yes.
That we are being divided by dystopia, by apathy as well. That there is, as well as the tragedy of the commons out there, we have a tragedy of the horizon, which is a tragedy of our own vision, of our own ambitions of what's possible. In that, so many people's relationship to the future is one of scarcity and fear. And it didn't used to be like this. If you look at the Edelman Trust Barometer, it's now 4 out of 5 people in the world believe the current system isn't working, is broken. But a scarier stat is almost 2 out of 3 people in the world believe the future is going to be even worse than the present. And so how can the media transform that? There's the inverse question. What role is the media taking for that? If you look at like Netflix and you pick the sci-fi category, how much of that content is dystopic? The vast majority.
Most of it.
And so what we're doing is we're starting from a protopic future. That's not utopia. Protopia is, how do we constantly better the future? How do we constantly improve the future? And so what we're doing is we're using time as a design tool. And so we're inviting, through the Up Game, typically it's 48 leading change makers from around the world, people with a big vision and a mission, and they're already executing on that in some realm, whether they're an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, a musician, an artist, an indigenous elder, an investor, people of influence that are creating transformation in the world. And we're inviting those leaders to come and step outside of that moment in time and into the moment of time where our vision has been achieved. And what we do is we film that over 6 days. The Up Game is this immersive experience where you're creating a lived experience, an embodied experience of the future we wish to see. So we're actually living our stories. And it's from that place that we're able to see each other's puzzle pieces, that we're able to see each other's role in, if you like, the transition team. And it's where we're able to actually create the field of intelligence that's every time more than the sum of our parts, to be able to collectively write a new story, an upgraded civilization. Now, what we do with that is really interesting, is through that story, we're filming it, and we've now shot, several thousand hours of content, and we're editing that into a TV series. But we're also using AI as a way to index all of that content. So then we can write, let's find all of the stories that relate to a specific topic, like soil health, or removing plastics from the oceans, or pick a topic that you want to focus on and find all of the content that's been discussed in that. So part of it is enabling us to real time put together stories related to topics. But what we're then doing is we're using AI as a tool to index all of our visions so that we can actually use that augmented collective intelligence as, if you like, a benevolent civilization designer. We're calling this Gaia. And we're training Gaia with all of those stories so that Gaia can be, if you like, a guide on how do we make choices from the future backwards, to this reverse engineering point you made, from a place of wholeness. What would it need to look like for us to get there? And then the next question is, how do we finance that? So how do we bridge the gap between what we can imagine and what we can create? And what we've done is we've designed an entirely new concept of money, a form of money that is actually enabled with AI, with the AI that we're developing, so that all of this money has actually got conscious intention. It's money on purpose to create those futures we wish to see. And so our hypothesis here is, if we can actually have a clear, if you like, horizon point of the future, we can actually align the financial incentives necessary to create that future and seed ecosystemic cooperation, so to bring together all the different stakeholders necessary to go and create that future. So quite literally, we can reverse engineer the future. And so that's our hypothesis, and it's a big, audacious goal. But we're well on the way on the path. We're creating, the AI is already here. It's blowing everyone's mind in terms of its collective intelligence. And we're forming lots of partnerships around this. So I think, the story, if we take that conclusion that I started with, that the story is the front line, what are we doing to upgrade our story of the future? How are we telling better stories? And how are we starting our strategy process from the story which we want to achieve, is the key question. And the Up Game is almost like a design thinking methodology to do that.
Wow, amazing. And so how would you define Gaia?
So Gaia, it's a great question. Gaia is a very old name. It's actually arguably one of the oldest names we have for the planet Earth. It goes back to the ancient Greeks. Gaia is the goddess of planet Earth, because it was thought that the planet Earth is alive and sentient and has sacred, if you like, collective consciousness. Now, James Lovelock was a very interesting scientist and philosopher who created Gaia theory, that actually our planet is alive and sentient and communicating, and that it's not just, individual intelligence, that there's a much bigger collective intelligence, like a big organism. Really worth checking out. And so we thought when we were looking for what would be an identity for citizens of United Planet, of a borderless nation that is open to everyone that wants to upgrade the future, and that isn't only open for humans, it's actually open for all life. So the notion here is that if the name of our planet is Gaia, the whales are Gaians, the dolphins are Gaians, the trees are Gaians, the birds are Gaians, the bees are Gaians, and humans are Gaians.
Yes.
And so we just need to step into our own awareness that we are Gaians. And then we need to step into this bigger awareness that we are on a collective mission together, that we're all kind of passengers of Spaceship Earth. We're all passengers together, part of Gaia's whole body. You know, as living beings, we're all part of, think of this as an enormous planetary body. Each part of us form different parts of that body. And so the Gaians, if you like, the change makers that we're inviting together, I think of as a bit like the planetary immune system response, the T cells, or the imaginal cells, if you want to use the metaphor of the chrysalis of the caterpillar to the butterfly. But the T cells, they communicate with each other and they share codes of how to fight an infection. And that's basically what we're doing right now, is our world is destroying itself. And we need a team of the best of us on behalf of all of us to come together to say, we need to redesign our world in a way that works for all of us, not some of us, but all of us, because otherwise we will destroy ourselves.
Yeah,
and
it's the ecosystem. Yeah, either it works for everything and everybody or not. And
exactly.
So it's fascinating concept, Lucian, of studying the language of different expressions of Gaians that you share with me in Davos, and I was so fascinated by it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so language has always been one of the ways, one of the greatest celebrations of culture of any great civilization of the past. You know, you think of the Egyptians with the hieroglyphs, or you've got you've got Sanskrit, or you've got these great languages of history. And it always occurred to me that we are in we need a civilization level upgrade right now. And language is hiding in plain sight as one of the areas that we can actually upgrade. We create new computer languages all the time. We don't think twice about going from one language to another from a computer. But when we think about our own language, we're still quite limited in the spoken word. But now what AI is doing is it's what I'd like to think of Project Babelfish, if you're familiar with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Babelfish is this little fish you put in your ear that is able to translate any language in the entire cosmos. And so what Gaia AI we're envisioning will be able to do is become a universal translator of any language of the cosmos, the language of nature, the language of the trees, the whale song, the ways that other species are able to communicate. And that's unique. We're at a unique moment in time that we're able to do that. So now the question is, if we can actually understand and incorporate the wisdom of other species and other languages through this universal translator, can we now apply that intelligence to our collective augmented intelligence so that we can bring more wisdom into the field of our applied intelligence for how do we design pathways to get into a thriving future?
Right.
Because the whales have developed the whale song, the sperm whales are 55 million years old.
Yeah, of course.
What mythologies are they saying? What are they teaching us? We're now at a point where AI can help us decode that.
Exactly.
If that's the case, we can start to include the wisdom of the whales in our guidance for how AI will help us get through this eye of the needle civilizational crisis moment that we're in. And so the whole idea is, let's include more life in our circle of inclusion.
Yeah.
And let's go beyond the spoken word. It's not that we're going to replace English, But no,
Yeah,
what we're going to do is add more dimensions to language. So if
of
you think
course.
time is the fourth dimension, but we have other ways that we express, through
Yes,
our emotions, through our sensations, through, check out the telepathy tapes if you haven't. It's a fascinating
yes,
sort of science-backed argument that telepathy is real.
of
That
course.
that there's these other mechanisms. So what if we start to include those in a broader understanding of language? That would allow us to increase our capacity of understanding and communication and intelligence so that we may actually be able to get beyond our kind of individual capacity to think through pathways, but apply all of our intelligence as a way to create a thriving future, because it's going to take that. It's really
Of
both
course.
complicated and simple.
It's
Yeah.
the next level. It's the next level. But Lucian, this I feel and I think that it is definitely the way forward. And before starting wrapping up this interesting conversation, I want to say that by writing this new book, that, as I said, it's an intersection between sustainability and longevity. So I discovered that, for instance, the movements of the waves is a language. So the ocean speaks, and we just see how beautiful it is, but we don't understand what it's saying. Same thing, the movements of the trees, the leaves of the trees, they do all these undulations, and they are saying something. And the animals speak, and they are telling us stories that we don't understand. So when we speak about the concept of expanding consciousness, so people sometimes look at me like, I'm crazy. What the fuck that means, expanding consciousness? What you are saying, I have to pay bills, I have to survive, I have to, get alive tomorrow.
Which is an irony, right?
Which is an irony, but at the
Exactly.
same time, by studying all these things, I discovered that there are, and I'm not, a medical scientist, so I cannot say if it's true or not, but it makes sense to me. So that we have, as humans, a series of DNA strands, and that maybe dozens of them, and just a few are awake. Most of them are dormant. So maybe those DNA strands that are sleeping, if reactivated, they can understand some of these, languages or these signs and signals that and frequencies that now we don't even know of they exist. So maybe reawaking these dormant DNAs is a scientific method to expand our comprehension of the world. And I'm sure, once again, I don't know exactly how to do it, but I'm sure that when we regain consciousness of the way we breathe, the way we move, what we eat, when we eat it, why we eat it, why our body, moves in certain ways and not in others, of which we are totally unconscious, why we are seated and not standing. When humans regain consciousness of all these aspects, those DNA strands reactivate themselves, and then the consciousness expansion occurs. You see? And this is just to, share with you and with the Planet Gold audience some of these ideas that maybe we don't see, materialize in our lifetimes, but I'm sure that next generations, with the support of AI that, is able to process this mass of critical data much faster and much more efficiently than any human. I think that we are on the right path. And just to conclude this concept, and because you are so close with the yogic culture and tradition, it's a little bit the same thing. Like millennia ago, the yogis understood that we have dozens of chakras, hundreds of chakras, even thousands of chakras, and we just have 7, maybe lightly active, and all other hundreds are totally deactivated. And so maybe they understood in a less scientific way the same thing. And so just I want to share this, this line of study and research that I'm focusing on now. And I'm sure that this, is argument for many other conversations, both of us, and of course we can include other like-minded people. I don't know if you have seen the podcast, the Planet Gold episode with Mamadou Touré.
He's a very dear friend. He's a Gaian.
Exactly, and
he's actually
he's another leader in this space. Yeah. But listen, just to conclude this engaging conversation, I have a question that gives you, I hope, an opening to also share more of your genius in this space, which is this. So imagine you have a magic wand and you wouldn't have any limitation in terms of knowledge, of resources, of people, of assets, of time, of space. And you would be, let's say, a very highly positioned politician, and you could take decisions on how to move forward or to accelerate, I should say, the implementation of the global climate agenda. What would you do?
I love the question. I actually do think I do have a magic wand that I apply.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you do.
And the magic wand, the magic trick is actually very simple. It's let's start from where we wish to be. And let's incentivize the creation of that place. And so the first step I would do is I would make sure that all money was being able to be applied for in areas that serve our collective thriving, the destructive side of capital and the destructive incentives. Look at the privatization of prisons and the junk food industry and the overfishing. And there's a lot of aspects of money that is destroying our world because of the unbridled nature of free market capitalism, unrestricted with any limitations or value of life. So I would focus on how do we value and recognize the inherent rights of all life. And then I would challenge the monopoly of ideas that nation states have. So I think fundamentally countries are getting to the point in time where their service to our future is they're overstepping their reach in their own capacity to deal with the crisis our world faces right now. In that actually structurally they're not fit for purpose for the time we're in. And it doesn't mean that they're going to go away. We're still going to have our national identity and pride and diversity and all the things that is good about where we come from place. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to go hyper local about empowering communities empowering bioregions, empowering cities, ultimately connecting up continents around how we transform ourselves. And in doing so, we can go beyond the finite game structure of the nation state. And with that, once we shift the game dynamics from a win-lose game to a win-win game, where I win when we all win, and this is a win-for-all design mechanism, and we're actually incentivizing everybody to be continuing the win-for-all game. When we're able to shift there, we're actually able to completely redesign what we value. And in doing that, we can actually incentivize what leads to our own success. So I think there's a number of pieces here. It's looking at baseline incentives. It's looking at system structures that from the ways we organize our world's resources and the institutions that we govern our world's resources with. It's looking at the application of money and talent. And ultimately, it is about recognizing that we're entering a completely new era of applied consciousness.
Yes.
Now I say that with there is a moment right now, consciousness is spreading. People are recognizing that a lot of the practices we've been, doing in the world have been destroying us, that the American dream isn't actually a dream worth dreaming. It's actually more often, very destructive, and it's extractive. And, we're recognizing that that what actually creates true happiness and true wealth can look quite different than the consumer stories we're being told. And so once we go beyond that, we can actually get into right relationship with our planet. And then we're kind of going back to, if you like, the ancient future. Because in a part, we're going back to a lot of the things where our ancestors cherished and how they lived, and a lot of the actual simplicity of life that they had. But then we're going forward into the future with access to longevity. And, as you're focusing with your book, ancient principles, like in the Hermetic principles, as above and so below, as within, so without.
Of course.
So, as we're able to bring in more wisdom, as we're able to rise in consciousness, we're able to really step into our full flourishing. And that is an amazing moment to be alive. It's an amazing opportunity to be alive, to rewrite the story, to rise to the challenge, and to become the great ancestors to the future that we are destined to be. And so when you step into that, the world becomes, in support of you, is my experience. It becomes you have this field of just the magic all around you that want this future to be created. And so it's an incredible journey, and I just encourage everybody to step into their purpose journey and to step into what is that future that you have in your heart, and how do you dedicate your life and your mission to that future with surrendered awareness that actually you will be looked after and you will find abundance by focusing your talents where they are most in need and in greatest service.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. I mean, you are a treasure to this platform. To me, in my life, I'm learning so much, and you're certainly a source of inspiration for many of us. And I should say that one of the concepts that you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, which is about rewriting the storytelling about this new evolution.
Right.
I think that that's the what we have it under our control. We can do that as we are doing now here, you see, and doing it more and more and more, adding distribution, massive and global distribution to creation. As you say, our generation is the first one in the history of humanity to have access to free tools. Like, we have not, I mean, we have spent an hour of our time at zero cost. You see, I mean, and probably, hundreds of thousands people will benefit from this conversation, and nobody's paying anything apart from, the electricity bill, which is still a privilege to pay for, for us. But we are making good use of it, I feel. Anyway, Lucian, I wish you all the best with your endeavors, both in business, in life. Keep leading the way as you are doing. And I'm sure that together we can make these worlds much better.
Thank you,
brother.
Enzo.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for those that are watching. I appreciate your attention. It's the best application of that currency called time. And so I appreciate that. And invite, if anyone resonates with this and feels
Please.
called to join this story, check out up.game, just www.up.game, and come and join the Gaians to upgrade our story of the future. And Enzo, if you're going to be in COP30 in Brazil,
Totally and absolutely,
we're going to be doing the Amazonian arc, and taking a group of storytellers down the Amazon River together before COP kicks off, in order for us to challenge, what hasn't worked, which is the climate crisis, into how does the story of hope catalyze action and catalyze systemic change. So we're architecting some really important stories there, and we'd love you to be part of it.
Oh, of course. And we were speaking before about the events that I produce with the Better World Fund in Cannes during the Cannes Film Festival every year. And in at least 4 occasions, we had on stage with me the Raoni, who is the top spiritual leader of the Amazon people, Chief Raoni. We had the Minister of Culture and Indigenous People of the government of Brazil. We had Leonardo DiCaprio in the room honoring, the Amazon people. So I've been doing quite, an interesting load of work with and for the Amazonian people. So I'm glad to bring that wealth of experience, connections to your project, and so move that angle also forward. Okay, Lucian, keep enjoying Ibiza, I should say.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I'll see you soon. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate you, Enzo. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.